This time on Auto Anatomy, we're back working on the Porsche. We're bound and determined to make this thing a daily driver, even if it kills me. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Sean. This is Auto Anatomy. Today we're back working on the Porsche, and you know, there's a lot of little things that need to happen on this car. It's been sitting since about 2006, so a lot of the systems just don't work very well anymore. And unfortunately, things that were working have now stopped working. Like when I got the car, the pop-up headlights worked, the power windows worked, and now neither one of those work. So I'm sure that given the state of the wiring of this car, it's just something simple like that. I want to make this thing a daily driver as much as I possibly can, because I really enjoy these little, like, small cars. They don't have a lot of power, but they're just fun to drive. And frankly, there's really not a whole lot left to do on this thing. There's a lot of cosmetic stuff to do. I need to figure out the clutch. I need to put a radio in it, you know, just a bunch of little things like that. So I want to wrap up a lot of loose ends on the car today, and hopefully you can join along with me. Listen, thank you so much for all of the support on the Thunderbird project. I'll put a link to that project up above, and I cannot say thank you enough for all of the love and support for our channel. We have grown tremendously in the last year, and it's all because of you. So if you like this kind of content, click on that subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out. Well, since we're getting pretty close to starting to drive this thing, I want to make sure it looks pretty, so whipped up a little wet sanding rig. So we're just going to wet sand the car and make it shine. One thing I've noticed about this car is that the gas gauge doesn't work, and that's not that uncommon for a car that's been sitting for a long time, and it's usually just because there's a bunch of crud on the fuel sending unit. And on this car, it's actually pretty easy to get to. It's in the trunk, and all you've got to do is just pop a little cover off and it's right there. But before we can do that, the rear hatch struts on this car are toast. So we're going to put new rear hatch struts on it so they can hold the hatch up while working on it. Now, if you've priced these things, they're like $80 to $100 each from Porsche, and maybe like $60 each from some of the aftermarket suppliers. And what's unusual about them is, let me see if I can show you here. They have a wire attached to them that's the power supply for the rear window defrost. And that makes these things immensely more expensive. But just got this package in today, and I think we may have a solution. Okay, did a little digging, and it looks like one of the problems on this car was that the hatch struts were so strong that they would cause delamination of the rear hatch. And one of the common replacement things is to use the hatch struts from like a 95 Jeep Wrangler, because they're the same size. They do have the little tab for the rear window defroster, and they're a little bit lighter in pressure, so they're not going to put as much stress on the rear hatch. Well, let's get these things installed. All right, now we've got the lift struts holding the hatch up, so I'm not going to bang my head. I think the fuel sending unit is under here. If I can peel this back. Yeah, it should be right underneath there. So let's get all this stuff out and pop that little rubber cap off and see what we can find. Alright, well, there's our sending unit. Right, so this is actually pretty encouraging. So when I take the power wire and the ground to see if the gas gauge moves, when I touch them, you can see the gas gauge moves. And this should be our low fuel light. So let's see. So that's working, which means the gauge is functional, and that's huge because this is a whole lot easier to fix than the gauge. Okay, I've got this little guy on the bench here. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this or not. There's a little like nut down in here, and it's a safety nut. So you've got to make a little tool that's got two prongs to go in and spin it. So I just took an old screwdriver here and just like hacked a little Batman there in the end of it. Let's see if this will actually work. That's disgusting down in there. So it's actually not that bad in there. This guy is moving. I wonder if it was just stuck, because it looks like it's a bunch of crap down in there. Yeah, now it's moving better. So we'll get this cleaned up, get it all put back together, and test it out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I think it'll work. And this is really interesting, the way this is designed. So this is the plate that goes on the bottom of the sending unit. And what it looks like is that fuel comes in, I don't know if you can see that, right there, that little groove, and then follows this little labyrinth all the way to these two holes. Let's see if you can see. One right there and right there. So first, all of this was just gummed up. I mean, no fuel was getting in, and then these two holes were also full. So it almost makes me wonder if no fuel was getting in to allow this thing to go up and down. So I bet you we can just clean this guy up and the sending unit will work again. You gotta be super careful around all these little tiny wires. I'm afraid I'm gonna break one. Well, I think it's about as clean as I can get it. Let's put it back together and see what happens. Alright, so I'm under the car and just trying to figure out what that vibration is at about 2,500 RPM. I mean, I don't see anything obvious. This little exhaust pipe here was loose, just a tiny bit back of the clamp, but when I hit this, hopefully you can hear, there's like a little bit of a rattle somewhere, and I don't know if it's a heat shield or what's going on. So I'm just gonna have to do a little digging here. But I bet you that's what my vibration is. Now, I don't think that's going to address the clutch issue, but it'll at least make it a little bit less noisy to drive. So I think I've isolated the noise as to being inside this resonator here. So maybe even where this pipe comes to join, because when I hit it, the noise is in here. So I'm going to pray that I can get this resonator off, see if there's a pipe that's loose in there. Maybe I can weld it back up or pull it out, just figure out what's going on in there, because that is annoying and makes me not want to drive it like that. Man, I got so lucky. All 4 of the nuts on the turbo have come off. Not a one of them is broken. Whew. I need to go buy a lottery ticket or something, because that never happens. And just because we can, I want to hear what it sounds like with no exhaust. And the answer is not good. I think we'll put the exhaust back on it. You know, about once every 6 months I'll find a use for this little bore scope. So I think this may be it. See if we can see anything down in here. Looking down through here, you can see the outside of that perforated pipe. And I don't know if there's supposed to be packing in there or not, but I bet you that pipe is just vibrating down in the chamber here, and that's what's causing our rattle. So as much as I don't want to do this, I think I'm going to end up just splitting this open, seeing if I can fix that vibration. Well, now that I've got that all fixed up, it doesn't sound like there's a noise anymore. Let's get it back in and see if it still vibrates. One thing I've noticed about this car is that someone's really been working on it, and not in a good way. And it just ran super rich at idle, and I didn't know why. And in the process of just looking to see, what could cause it to run rich, I found that there is a CIS adjustment screw for the air-fuel ratio. So I popped my wideband in, and lo and behold, it's like 11.3 at idle. So just one little change here. There was a screw that was shoved down in there that wasn't factory. Take like a little Allen wrench, and now look at it. Well, if you can see that, it's like 14.0 with just like a 1/16 of a turn on that little screw. So we're just gonna go take it for a drive and see what the air fuel ratio does. Okay, so let's see what it does under full throttle. It's like about 11.5. 11.25. That's not bad. I'd rather it be just a little bit rich, and actually for this elevation, we're about almost 7,000 feet here. That's not bad, but when I get off of it and I'm just cruising, it's 14.3, 14.2. I think that's perfect. I'm actually not going to touch it. I'm just going to leave things as it is right now. Hey, check this out. So I picked up a radio on Facebook Marketplace. It's like an old school Pioneer for only 20 bucks. So I think it'll work really well for this thing. He says it works, hadn't been used in a while, but yeah, let's get it installed. So although we've got a lot done on the car, we've still got a lot to do. I'm still having a little bit of a clutch issue where it doesn't feel like it's fully disengaging. I need to measure, and apparently there's a measurement that, if you can look through this hole, and 18 millimeters is a new clutch and 34 millimeters is worn. I just haven't done that yet. And I still need to go through the brakes and suspension. Now the brakes are working, and I looked at the pads, and there's actually a lot of material left on the pads. But just for sake of going through it, I probably will end up putting new brakes on the car. And I do definitely need to put suspension on it, because the right front shock is assuredly leaking. The rears, I don't feel like have any dampening at all. So I know that it's going to need shocks and struts on it. Not a big deal. I'll go through that. Do some new bushings, sway bar end links, that kind of stuff. But truthfully, I'm not far away from painting yet. And that's the next really big step on the car. I do still need a few parts, so hopefully you guys can help me out there. I'm looking for the center section of the rear spoiler. Mine is chewed up on the driver's side. I need one of the hoses for the air conditioner because it broke off, and it's been broken off. I'd love to find a good used fuel sending unit. I can buy a new, that's not really the issue. I couldn't find anything wrong with mine, but it just doesn't work. And I know the wiring is good, as you saw earlier. So if you've got some of those parts, hit me up and let me know, because so much of what we're doing here is thanks to you guys. I mean, you have made this possible. Our channel has grown exponentially over the last year, and I just cannot say thank you enough. So thank you for sharing, and subscribing. That's going to wrap up this episode. Coming up next on the Porsche, we're probably going to do brakes and suspension. We'll have to wait until next time. So take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you later.